You don't get to ask those questions. What's wrong with you, Mom? Why are you so scared?
I'm going to say this as clearly as I possibly can. I'm an influencer, YouTuber, whatever you want to call it. I'm just sitting here calling balls and strikes as best I can. I don't have a security clearance. I don't work for the federal government. I know people who do. I try to find out information, but I mean, obviously you can't know everything. I'm not inside of the system. I wasn't appointed. I wasn't Senate confirmed. I've never had my name on a ballot. This is my profession. So the best that you can do, as far as I'm concerned, is pattern recognition. But there are people who actually have been inside of the federal government. There are people who do have clearances and who were nominated and were Senate confirmed. And those people have a responsibility to behave and act like adults and to not engage in reckless assumptions, inferences, and allegations. Like, if you have the data and you have the evidence and you have the access to things, then you're not allowed to just like wink and nod at us and like play coy, especially on issues that are so critical to the fabric of the country or the lack thereof. Like, the killing of Charlie Kirk has just atomized so many good and positive momentum moments for the MAGA movement, and it's kind of twisted things up, and everybody can feel that, and it sucks. And a lot of grifters, a lot of people that are doing their best to try and destroy his legacy, crib his audience, and to manipulate for clicks and money their relationships with Charlie. I've tried as hard as I possibly can to just be blunt and honest and forthcoming about who Charlie was. I view it as like my job as a actual friend of Charlie's to not monopolize or monetize his legacy and not to engage in reckless speculation. He does still have kids that are alive. He does still have a family, and there's going to be a trial. And so that's something that obviously I view like as an adult on the outside, something that I had to do. But I'm not in the inside. You know, there are people that do have access to what happened to Charlie, and it's terrorism, what happened to Charlie. And the guy who was in charge of counterterrorism, the director of it, in fact, his name's Joe Kent. And he had a very epic flame out recently with the Trump administration, went on Tucker Carlson's show less than 24 hours later and made what I believe to be a incredibly irresponsible accusation about what actually happened with Charlie's death. And a lot of people are quite bothered by it. Joe Kent strongly implies that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. I'm not, as I've said many times over, I'm angry about the way that the federal government has approached the question about Charlie, and have been, sort of talked off the ledge here because they have a case. They do need to protect the evidence in the case. If you just come out and vomit all the evidence out into the public, this is what happened with OJ. You taint the jury pool and you can destroy your entire case. And then they let the murderer walk free, which is what happened with OJ. And so you have to keep this stuff very close to the chest. And you have to be careful. But this isn't being careful. Joe Kent's out here with zero evidence, effectively saying that because Charlie was critical of Israel, that Israel killed him.
Killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space. And he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran," very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. And then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to have turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
no, I don't think you are.
Because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public, that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran.
Perfectly happy to entertain that we need to see all available information about every single assassin and every single person that wishes to kill or do any harm. I'm angry that we don't have the text messages and all of the information for Matthew Thomas Crooks, for instance. I know as a matter of fact that that's being held up, that won't be released to the public, at least not now. But I'm just a dude with a YouTube channel. I'm just a dude on the internet. I called and found these things out myself from law enforcement. Like, Joe Kent is law enforcement. That's the issue here. I won't engage in pejoratives or name calling against Joe Kent. I won't do it. But if you're going to go out and like make these kind of allegations, then you better bring something more than just like wink, wink, nod, nod, something weird's going on here. No, dude, you are in charge. Like, it's your job to stand up and say, like, no, they're shutting down. I'm in charge of counterterrorism. This was terrorism against Charlie Kirk. Israel did it. I'm coming out and like telling the world, here's the evidence. Here's all the emails. Here's all the data. But you don't get that. Instead, you get just kind of like that, just asking questions thing. And it doesn't fly when you're on the inside. It's incredibly difficult to pull that same thing when you're the one with the security clearance, because then it falls to you and it's your responsibility. Didn't you work with the FBI? Couldn't you have made this case? Clearly, this murder is something that the whole of the federal government wishes to solve. No? And if not, why? Weren't they all Charlie's friends? But all we get is like these inferences. It's like little coy, like wink, wink, nod, nod. No, dude, you're in charge. That's why it doesn't work. Kent wanted to use taxpayer dollars to pursue a Candace Owens style investigation as to whether Israel killed Charlie Kirk. These people are not tethered to reality. Joe Kent hints at Tucker Carlson that Israel kills Charlie Kirk. Other commentary here. Why isn't he showing the evidence? Okay, if you're going to publicly go out and say that there's a foreign nexus to kill Charlie, then why not show the receipts? Salacious claims, he says, if they are real and he's willing to publicly resign in a blaze of glory, then you better be able to disclose what's actually going on. Evidence, please. If you've got nothing, just like your gut feeling, that doesn't work when you're the guy with the security clearance and you're the guy in charge. That doesn't work. The responsibility has to fall to someone. It doesn't add up. All he does is appear to show that there are coincidental things like, hey, Charlie Kirk didn't like Israel or didn't like war with Iran. Now he's dead. That's not enough when you're the guy with the badge and the gun. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's what's frustrating to me. Last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth, he said, don't get us into war with Iran. Again, it seems strange to me that would be the last thing that Charlie would say to you. He didn't know you. I know that as a fact. And like the last thing he tells you is like the thing that you have decided to resign over. And also I just find it very strange. Again, there's a lot of people like coming after Joe Kent for this. Joe Kent were shared on Iranian regime media. Okay. Feels like we're watching a Pandora's box open here. With every passing day, it's becoming clear that Joe Kent was the source for insane crap the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson train wreck has been spewing. Lord only knows the actual terrorism we missed. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, shouldn't there be a counterterrorism investigation into left-wing terrorists who killed Charlie Kirk? Where's that? There you have it. Trump is being threatened by Israel into bombing Iran, which Trump has called for years. Joe Kent called for up until very recently. Also, Iran killed Charlie Kirk because why not? Oh, Israel killed Charlie Kirk because why not? Whatever. Same difference. This is what we're dealing with. I don't know, man. You can go through and find Joe Kent going very, very hard against the Iranians, saying Iran needs to be bombed. We need to get rid of their ballistic missile capabilities. We need to get rid of their nuclear capabilities. Iran tried to kill Trump. He said that. These are his own words, not my inferences, his words. And then suddenly, like, he snaps, and now we find out that he's under investigation for leaking to the press. And some of these, like, again, like, totally unfounded theories, because that's what they are. Because you don't have evidence. Like the Tyler Robinson, you have DNA evidence, fingerprint evidence, circumstance. You have all of the evidence on the actual ground. The gun, the car, the family, the cops. I've spoken with the cops that arrested Tyler Robinson. I've spoken with the people that were there the day of the arrest. The guy confessed. The guy sat there and confessed. It'll all come out. So, I don't know. Call me whatever you want to call me. There's like this mountain of actual physical hard DNA and data evidence over here. And then there's a bunch of people like saying, just asking, just wink, wink, nod, nod. Doesn't fly. Again, it doesn't fly. I'm not saying like blindly believe absolutely everything. I don't believe the official story on 9/11. I don't believe, obviously, the official story about JFK's assassination or even the Trump assassination. But I'm saying if you're going to do that, you better bring evidence. If you're going to like try and like make these kind of claims, you have to bring evidence. Otherwise, you're not doing anybody any favors. You're literally just creating more fog of war. Also, where's the investigation of the left-wing terrorists that took out Charlie? Dan Bongino blast Joe Kent for exploiting Charlie's name for click. This is the most disgusting, unethical, immoral stuff I've ever seen.
Candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt.
But I have to just leave here. This is some of the most disgusting, unethical, and immoral stuff I have ever seen. Leveraging the death of my good friend, his brutal murder, his assassination, that the whole world watched in all of its horrifying gore. For your podcast appearance, you're disgusting. Thank you for your service to the country. You're also disgusting.
Okay. I don't know, man. It's a tough one for me. Doing our best to like just keep it on the straight. Hard lines, and to not deceive people, and to not manipulate some of the worst stuff that's ever happened to our movement, like for our own personal gain, for clicks. I don't know. It's lonely out here. Anyway, I think that's wrong. I do. I really do. And it doesn't hit if you're the guy with the badge and the gun. Okay? That's why it doesn't hit. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. See ya.